I remember the morning the world seemed to shatter. The day I learned that my parents, with fury in their eyes and fists fueled by misguided ambition, had struck my pregnant belly. I'd been sitting in my room, light streaming through the curtains, when I heard their raised voices and felt the sting of a blow that no one should ever inflict. End it for her future, they screamed, their demand echoing in my ears like a curse. In that agonizing moment, everything I'd ever known, my dreams, my body, my unyielding hope for motherhood, crumbled. And yet, as the pain slowly subsided, a fierce determination began to grow inside me, igniting a journey that would force me to reclaim my life, my truth, and ultimately, leave my family utterly speechless. I was only 27, carrying a precious yet fragile life that I had longed for since childhood. My name is Emily, and until that fateful day, I had believed my family's love was unconditional. I grew up in a bustling, boisterous household where every member had a role to play, each of us contributing to a tapestry of shared dreams and endless support. I always envisioned motherhood as the pinnacle of that support, a natural culmination of a lifetime of care. Yet, the moment my parents discovered I was pregnant, everything changed. It started with whispers, snide comments that I initially dismissed as typical family banter. But as my belly grew, so did their discontent. My parents, who had always pushed me to be practical, began to fixate on my sister, Marianne, who had always struggled to secure a stable future. According to them, Marianne's life was a series of missed opportunities, a continuous cycle of setbacks. In their eyes, my pregnancy was a burden, a luxury I did not deserve, when all their resources should instead be devoted to Marianne's future. I remember one night at dinner when my father, with an icy tone, said, "If you're really serious about starting a family, you must consider what's best for Marianne. Our money, our time, they should be invested in her prospects, not wasted on you." I sat there, paralyzed by disbelief, unable to comprehend how the woman who had cradled me since birth could now treat me as an inconvenience. That evening as I lay in bed, the weight of their words and the fear of what might come kept me awake. I recalled all the nights I had spent dreaming of my child's future, envisioning a life filled with love, learning, and hope. Instead, I was being forced to question the very foundation of that dream. When I heard a commotion in the hallway, footsteps, raised voices, I crept out of my room, only to witness a scene I will never forget. My mother, her face contorted with anger, was in the kitchen arguing with my father. Before I could retreat in horror, they noticed me. In a moment that blurred time, my father advanced and struck me across the belly, the impact sending a shock of pain that I felt deep into my bones. "End it," my mother screamed, "if you want Marianne to have a future." The words reverberated through the house, drowning out any cry of protest I tried to muster. I stumbled back to my room, tears streaming down my face, my body trembling with shock and disbelief. The physical pain was excruciating, but it was the betrayal, the crushing realization that my own parents could be so cruel, that shattered me most profoundly. I spent the night curled up on my bed, the quiet sobs echoing in the dark, wondering how I could possibly move forward when even the ones meant to protect me had turned against me. In the days that followed, I was forced to confront a cascade of questions. How could I, who had always given my heart so fully to my family, now feel so alone? What had driven them to such extremes? Extremes that had left me not only physically hurt but emotionally bankrupt. I began to search for answers in places I never thought to look. I called Marianne, my older sister, who had always been the golden child in my parents' eyes. Her voice was distant and guarded as she admitted that the decision had been made long ago, that I was deemed unworthy, that my future was considered a luxury we could no longer afford if Marianne were to have the opportunities they believed she deserved. The revelation was a blow I wasn't prepared to handle. The sister I had admired from afar now seemed complicit in a conspiracy that had shattered my dreams. I also sought solace in therapy, where Dr. Helen Jacobs listened patiently as I recounted every detail of that traumatic episode. "Emily," she said gently one afternoon, "what happened to you is not your fault. Your parents' actions reflect their own misguided priorities and deep-seated insecurities." Her words, though comforting, did little to erase the pain of that night, yet they planted a seed of determination. I began to see that I had two choices: to allow this betrayal to define me or to use it as fuel to build a better future. A future where I was in control of my own destiny, where my worth was determined not by the judgments of others, but by my own inner strength. Fueled by this newfound resolve, I made the decision to leave home. I packed a small suitcase with a few belongings, left behind the house that had once been filled with love and laughter, and moved to a small apartment in the city. The transition was anything but smooth. I encountered financial struggles, bouts of loneliness, and the haunting memories of that violent night. Yet each challenge I faced became a stepping stone toward reclaiming my identity. I enrolled in college courses to further my education, took up a part-time job and eventually began to write my journal filled with the raw, unfiltered truth of my journey from betrayal to self-discovery. I started a blog where I shared my story with others who had felt cast aside by those they loved. The outpouring of support from strangers who had faced similar pain helped me slowly piece together a new self-image, a self that was resilient, resourceful, and determined to rise above the darkness of my past. Months turned into years, and with time I rebuilt my life with painstaking care. I discovered a passion for art and design, fields that allowed me to channel my pain into creativity. I took up painting and writing with a fervor I had never known, each brushstroke and every carefully crafted sentence a tribute to the resilience of the human spirit. My art exhibitions began to draw small crowds, each showing a facet of my emotional journey, from the raw, searing pain of that night to the tentative hope that blossomed in the aftermath. I collaborated with other artists who had also experienced heartbreak and betrayal, and together, we turned our shared experiences into a vibrant mosaic of expression and healing. In the midst of my personal rebuilding, I found strength in unexpected places. I formed a close circle of friends, people who, despite their own scars, celebrated life with a ferocity that was contagious. Among them was Michelle, a former classmate who had endured her own family's rejection and had emerged with an indomitable spirit. Over long nights spent talking in cozy cafes and quiet evenings at our favorite bookstore, Michelle's unwavering support reminded me that I was not alone in this journey. "You're amazing, Emily," she would say with a smile that lit up her eyes. "You've turned your pain into something beautiful. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Her words, though simple, resonated deeply and propelled me to continue fighting for my own happiness. As I built a new life in the city, I also found solace in the world of literature and creative writing. I began attending local writing workshops, where I shared my story in small, supportive circles. These sessions were both cathartic and empowering, as I learned that the act of telling one's truth can be a powerful step toward healing. I even started a small, self-published book, a collection of essays and poems that detailed my journey from the night I was hit by my own parents to the gradual, painful process of reclaiming my self-worth. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Readers wrote to me sharing their own stories of family betrayal and resilience, and thanking me for giving voice to their own unspoken pain. In those moments, I realized that my story, as harrowing as it was, had the power to transform not only my own life but also to offer hope to others who felt lost and rejected. One particularly transformative period came during my second year away from home. I had saved enough money to rent a small studio apartment in a vibrant neighborhood, a place where creativity flowed freely and the scars of the past were slowly beginning to fade. I decorated my space with art that I had created, a series of abstract paintings that captured the tumult of emotions I had experienced, from the searing pain of betrayal to the quiet determination of renewal. Every morning, as I sipped my coffee on the tiny balcony and watched the city come alive, I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't known in years. I had learned to accept that while my past would always be a part of me, it did not define my future. During that time, I also began to explore new career opportunities. My passion for design led me to take on freelance projects that allowed me to build a portfolio of work that reflected not just my skills but my unique perspective on life. I collaborated with local businesses, designed logos and branding materials, and even started a small online shop where I sold prints of my paintings. Every new project was a reminder that I was capable of creating beauty from the ashes of my past, a testament to the power of resilience and self-determination. Yet, despite all the progress I had made, the pain of that traumatic day still lingered like a ghost in the background. There were nights when the memory of my parents' cruel demands, that I end my pregnancy for my sister's future, would resurface, overwhelming me with a wave of sorrow and anger. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how the people who were supposed to protect me could cause such deep wounds. In those moments, I would turn to my writing, pouring every emotion onto paper until I felt that I had released a small piece of the pain. I began to see that healing was not about erasing the past, but about integrating it into the fabric of who I was, a tapestry of both scars and triumphs that made me uniquely strong. Eventually, I reconciled with the fact that my journey was my own to define. I decided that I would return home, not to seek forgiveness or to mend the irreparable bonds of my childhood, but to confront my past with a newfound clarity and assert my independence. I planned a quiet visit back to the small town where I had once been disowned, a trip meant to close old wounds and to let my family see the woman I had become. I arranged to stay in a modest hotel, and on the day of my arrival, I walked through the familiar streets with a mixture of trepidation and quiet resolve. When I arrived at my parents' house, I was met with a tense silence. My family had gathered for a small reunion, and their faces were etched with surprise and apprehension as they saw me. I could sense the unspoken questions in the air, the shock that the daughter they had cast away had returned, the guilt that perhaps they had been too harsh. I did not speak immediately, instead I allowed the moment to settle. In the quiet that followed, I approached my father, who looked at me with eyes filled with regret and sorrow. "I'm not the same girl you once disowned," I said softly, "and I'm here to show you that I've built a life that I'm proud of, one that is defined by strength, independence, and unconditional love." The conversation was long and painful, filled with apologies, tears, and a tentative hope that perhaps in time old wounds could begin to heal. My parents admitted that their actions had been driven by fear, a fear that I was too different, too independent, too much of a threat to the fragile family dynamics they had always maintained. Though their words did little to erase the past, they marked a step toward acknowledging the harm they had caused. In the months that followed my return, I continued to work on healing my relationship with my family, while also forging a new path forward for myself. I attended family gatherings with a guarded openness, accepting the small gestures of reconciliation without sacrificing my boundaries. I reconnected with siblings who had always supported me, and I began to see that while our family was deeply flawed, it was not entirely irreparable. I learned that forgiveness was a process, one that required honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to confront painful truths. I wrote about these experiences on my blog, sharing every setback and every small victory with readers who had come to see my story as a beacon of hope. Today, as I sit in my sunlit studio surrounded by my art and the soft murmur of creativity, I reflect on the winding, tumultuous path that brought me here, a journey marked by betrayal, rejection, and ultimately, a triumphant reclamation of my own worth. The scars of my past remain, etched into the fabric of my being, but they no longer define me. Instead, they serve as powerful reminders of the strength I discovered when I was forced to leave everything behind and build a future on my own terms. I now know that true healing comes from embracing every part of our story, the pain, the loss, and the resilience that follows. I have learned that family in its most authentic form is not determined solely by blood or tradition, but by the love and respect we cultivate in our hearts. I continue to strive for a life that is honest, vibrant, and filled with the kind of unconditional support that I once thought I had lost forever. My journey is far from over, but each day brings new opportunities to redefine my destiny, to turn betrayal into a source of strength, and to prove that no one can ever diminish the light that shines within me. This is my story, a story of abandonment and betrayal, of a family that once turned its back on me, and of the extraordinary resilience that emerged from those darkest moments. I returned after 9 years, not to demand forgiveness or to dwell on the past, but to reclaim my narrative and to show the world that my worth is not defined by the actions of others. Every scar is a testament to my survival, every tear a marker of the battles I've fought and won. And as I continue to forge my own path, I carry with me the unwavering belief that my destiny is mine to shape, a destiny built on strength, authenticity, and the transformative power of love.